that isn't meant for you. All right, Leo, let's get into your reading. All right, the energy coming through today is this, and it hits with a weight that cannot be ignored. This person finally woke up to a brutal reality that losing you will be their biggest regret. Something snapped inside them recently, a moment of clarity that shook everything they thought they understood. The fog they operated under for so long has lifted, and what remains is raw, undeniable truth. They see it now with painful precision, every misstep and missed opportunity laid bare in front of them. Regret settled into their bones like winter, cold and constant and impossible to warm away with distraction. This is not a fleeting thought at midnight. This is a permanent and irreversible shift in awareness. Denial kept them comfortable for longer than it should have, but comfort has officially run out of room. The weight of almost losing you crushed their illusion, and now they sit inside that wreckage, wide awake. What reaches me through this energy is desperation wrapped in accountability. Someone who finally owns what they risked. Their pride absorbed a wound it cannot heal from, because the source of that wound was their negligence. You meant more than they ever expressed, and that silence is now the loudest thing haunting their conscience. Every excuse they built to justify distance collapsed, leaving nothing between them and the truth but open air. Reckoning found them whether they invited it or not, and it brought receipts for every moment they wasted. The first card here is the Five of Cups, and this confirms mourning over what was nearly lost. Grief sits heavy in their chest with this card, not for something gone, but for something endangered. They stare at what spilled between you, fixated on damage, while remaining hope stands untouched behind them. This card reveals a person drowning in self-reproach, someone replaying every cold moment they wish they could erase. The Five of Cups tells me they grieve their own behavior, not yours, but their own choices entirely. Accountability arrived uninvited and refused to leave, and now they carry the weight of their actions everywhere. What haunts them most is knowing they had everything, and their failure to cherish it created the fracture. The Five of Cups confirms they mourn in private, wearing composure publicly while falling apart behind closed doors. Tears they never expected to shed over you have become frequent, arriving without warning during the quietest hours. Grief reshaped their perspective entirely, stripping arrogance away and replacing it with a humility that feels foreign. The Five of Cups reveals that remorse here is not performance. It lives permanently inside their daily existence. The next card pulling through is the Tower, and this represents the collapse that triggered their awakening. The Tower tells me something shattered their false sense of security, a sudden jolt that rearranged everything. Whatever structure they built to avoid vulnerability came crashing down, and you were the catalyst for that demolition. This card confirms a breaking point was reached, a moment where pretending became physically impossible to sustain. The Tower does not destroy gently, and neither did this realization when it struck them at full force. Foundations they assumed were solid crumbled overnight, revealing how fragile things become when love gets taken for granted. Reconstruction cannot begin until they face what fell, and that confrontation is happening right now inside their spirit. Rubble became their mirror, reflecting back every moment where love asked for presence and received absence instead. The Tower confirms this collapse was necessary, because without it they would have sleepwalked past you forever. Destruction became their teacher here, forcing wisdom through wreckage and clarity, through rubble that ego once protected. Now the final card arriving is the King of Swords, and this reveals the mental shift taking root. The King of Swords tells me their mind sharpened around one singular focus, and that focus is you. Emotional chaos is being channeled into strategic thinking, a deliberate process of figuring out how to reach you. The King of Swords confirms they operate now from calculated intention, not impulse and not desperation, but clarity. Their thoughts organized around a single conclusion, that life without you is an outcome they refuse to accept. So the message that I have for you today is this, and it speaks to where you stand. Your side of this connection carries a quiet power, one that grew from everything you endured without breaking. You have been through more than most people would survive, and yet here you are, still standing upright. Strength running through your energy is not borrowed or temporary. It was forged in fire you never chose. Something shifted in you recently that changed the way you carry yourself, and the cards recognize it fully. Where exhaustion once lived inside your chest, a calm resolve has taken its place, steady and unshakable. You stopped chasing what refused to meet you halfway, and that decision cost you more than anyone knows. Walking away from something your heart still wanted required a courage most people will never understand. Your silence was never weakness. It was a deliberate choice made by someone who knew their own worth. Boundaries became your armor when love failed to protect you, and wearing that armor changed your posture entirely. You learned to sit with discomfort rather than beg for scraps, and that discipline reshaped your entire foundation. Nothing about your healing was performative. It happened in private rooms where nobody witnessed the cost of rebuilding. The first card arriving for your side is Strength, and this could not be more fitting right now. Strength tells me that your endurance is extraordinary, a quiet ferocity that never needed volume to prove itself. You tamed your own storms without rescue, and that self-reliance became the bedrock of who you are. This card confirms that your patience was not passivity. It was a controlled and calculated act of self-preservation. Strength reveals that you mastered the art of restraint, holding back when every nerve begged you to react. Your composure under pressure surprised even you at times, because the urge to fight back never fully disappeared. Choosing peace over confrontation took more willpower than anyone recognized, and strength honors that sacrifice, without question. Strength confirms that softness and power coexist inside you. Neither one cancels the other, and both remain intact. The lion within you never needed to roar, because your presence alone communicated everything that words could not. The next card coming forward is the Four of Swords, and this reveals the rest you finally claimed. The Four of Swords tells me you entered a season of recovery, intentional and necessary and long overdue. Stillness became your medicine after months of emotional turbulence, and you allowed yourself permission to stop moving entirely. This card confirms stepping back was not giving up. It was giving yourself the space to heal properly. Your mind needed silence after absorbing so much noise, and the Four of Swords confirms stillness saved you. Rest taught you things that motion never could, like how to listen to your own needs without guilt. During that quiet period, you rediscovered buried parts of yourself, pieces you forgot existed beneath the chaos. The Four of Swords reveals that your withdrawal was strategic, a conscious retreat before the next chapter begins. Energy conserved during this phase is now available to you, stored and ready to fuel whatever comes forward. You did not collapse into rest out of defeat. You chose it from a position of earned self-awareness. The Four of Swords confirms that your recovery period is nearing completion, and renewed clarity is already emerging. Restoration reshaped your emotional landscape entirely, replacing exhaustion with a grounded readiness that feels different from anything before. What rises from this stillness carries wisdom the old version of you never possessed, and that difference matters. Now, the final card stepping in is the Queen of Wands, and this represents who you are becoming. The Queen of Wands tells me confidence is reigniting inside you, a magnetism that radiates without effort. You are stepping back into your own light after dimming it for far too long around others. This card confirms your fire never died. It was banked and protected and waiting for the right moment. The Queen of Wands reveals a transformation in how you carry yourself, bold and unapologetic and fully alive. Independence suits you in ways that even surprise you, because relying on yourself uncovered reserves you never tapped. Now I want to cross over into what is happening inside this person and what they cannot escape. They are trapped in a mental loop, one that plays your memory on repeat without any off switch. Every corridor of their mind leads back to you, and no detour they tried has led anywhere else. They attempted distraction, they attempted denial, and each strategy collapsed, the moment your face resurfaced in their thoughts. What they feel is not standard regret. It is an all-consuming fixation that has hijacked their nervous system. Their waking hours revolve around replaying what went wrong, and their sleeping hours offer no reprieve whatsoever. The torment is relentless, and the intensity of it has fundamentally altered how they move through ordinary existence. Come in close, because the cards are peeling back the layers of their psychological state with unforgiving precision. The first card for their side is the Two of Swords, and this captures their paralysis immediately. The Two of Swords represents a mind divided, a figure blindfolded by their own refusal to face truth. They know what happened, they understand the consequences, but they cannot bring themselves to fully accept the outcome. A war rages between what they want to believe and what reality has already confirmed beyond dispute. They keep searching for alternate endings, constructing scenarios where this did not unfold the way it actually did. The Two of Swords confirms they sit frozen at a crossroads, unable to choose between surrender and pursuit. Their indecision is not passive, it is agonizing, and the strain of holding both truths tears them apart. One half screams to chase you, and the other whispers that they forfeited that right through their actions. The blindfold on the Two of Swords represents willful avoidance, a refusal to face the mirror staring back. They refuse to examine their own role honestly, because doing so would require admitting fault they cannot stomach. That internal battle defines their every waking moment, and the Two of Swords shows no resolution approaching soon. They oscillate between confidence and collapse, and that pendulum swings harder with each day that passes without you. The next card is the King of Wands reversed, and this exposes a darker layer lurking within them. The King of Wands reversed represents ego stripped of its throne, charisma that has curdled into desperation overnight. They once carried themselves with certainty and presence, but losing you dismantled the persona they built around power. What the reversed king reveals is a person whose confidence was built entirely upon external validation from you. Without your attention or admiration, the version of themselves they projected has no foundation left to stand on. The King of Wands reversed confirms their obsession is tangled with identity crisis at a deeply uncomfortable level. They do not just miss your presence, they miss who they believed they were beside you. The reversed king reveals flashes of volatile emotion, anger that erupts because grief has no other exit point. They swing between desperate longing and bitter resentment, and neither lasts long enough to grant them clarity. What festers inside them is a toxic blend of wounded pride, raw heartache, and possessive attachment to you. The King of Wands reversed makes it clear. Their internal world has become hostile territory they cannot navigate. Then we have the Devil, and this card drags the most uncomfortable confession out of the shadows entirely. The Devil represents obsessive attachment, chains worn voluntarily, and the inability to release what no longer serves growth. They are bound to the idea of you, and this card confirms that attachment crossed into compulsive territory. The Devil reveals they fantasize about reclaiming you, not from love alone, but from inability to accept defeat. Possession drives them as much as affection does, and that duality creates a suffocating spiral they cannot escape. Their thoughts about you carry heat, intensity, and an almost addictive quality that frightens even them at times. The Devil confirms they recognize the obsession is unhealthy, but that awareness does nothing to weaken its grip. They are chained to your memory willingly, and this card shows they have not attempted removing them. Part of them finds comfort inside that obsession, because releasing it would mean confronting the emptiness beneath. So, what I want to shift into now is the action, what this person is preparing to do. They have reached a breaking point, and sitting with the loss is no longer sustainable for them. The stillness that held them in place has fractured, and a decision is forming rapidly inside their mind. They are assembling a plan, and the moves they intend to make will be direct and unavoidable. This is no longer theoretical, and the transition from internal agony to external motion has already begun. What was once paralysis is converting into calculated steps, and those steps are aimed squarely at reaching you. A threshold has been crossed, and the version of them that stayed frozen is being replaced by resolve. Let us go deeper, because the cards confirm that real and tangible movement is locked into their timeline. The first card here is the Six of Wands, and this signals a bold, public approach heading forward. The Six of Wands represents triumph, recognition, and the refusal to stay defeated in any visible capacity. They are preparing to show up boldly in a manner that demands attention without leaving room for dismissal. This card confirms they have decided to lead with confidence, even if that confidence is partially manufactured. They are choosing to project strength rather than collapse, and that decision reshapes how they will approach you. The Six of Wands tells me their re-entry will not be quiet, subtle, or easy to overlook. They want to be seen, and this card confirms they are engineering a moment designed to command attention. The approach will carry conviction behind it, and the Six of Wands shows them arriving with visible determination. Expect communication that feels intentional, words that have been selected with precision rather than thrown together carelessly. They are not stumbling toward you with desperation on display, and this card confirms a strategic entrance instead. The Six of Wands also suggests they may reach through mutual connections, using shared circles as a bridge. They are willing to leverage every available channel, and subtlety has been abandoned in favor of bold visibility. The next card arriving is Justice, and this adds a completely different dimension to their approaching behavior. Justice represents accountability, truth-telling, and the willingness to stand before consequences without attempting to dodge them anymore. They are preparing to own what they did, and this card confirms an admission of fault is forming. This is not a casual apology forming. It is a structured acknowledgement of exactly where they went wrong. Justice tells me they have cataloged their mistakes, and the confession they bring will be specific and detailed. They intend to lay every misstep on the table because they understand vagueness will not earn your trust. The scales of justice demand equilibrium, and this person recognizes that balance can only be restored through honesty. They are assembling their case with the gravity of a final appeal, knowing this is their last chance. Justice also signals willingness to accept whatever verdict you deliver after hearing their full and honest account. They are not coming to manipulate, and this card confirms they are prepared to honor your decision completely. The combination of bold visibility and genuine accountability defines how they intend to re-enter your orbit. They want to arrive with proof of change, not promises, and justice confirms that distinction drives every step. Then we have the Ace of Swords, and this card sharpens the entire trajectory of their coming approach. The Ace of Swords represents a breakthrough in clarity, a decisive moment where confusion finally gives way. They have cut through their own fog, and what remains is razor-sharp intention to reach you with truth. This card confirms they will lead with transparency, offering words stripped of pretense and delivered without any filter. The Ace of Swords does not permit half-truths, and what they bring will be raw and unedited. A new perspective has crystallized within them, and this card shows them acting from that fresh vantage point. They see the situation differently now, and the Ace of Swords confirms that shifted viewpoint propels their movement. Every action from this point carries the weight of finality because they recognize this window will not reopen. The urgency behind the Ace of Swords is palpable, and it confirms they are moving with total commitment. So now we are stepping into what this person has never admitted, the confessions buried beneath everything. These are words that live in the margins of their silence, truths they rehearse but never release. What they conceal from the world is not indifference. It is a terror of being seen as vulnerable. Their mouth stays shut while their mind screams confessions, and that gap between the two is widening daily. Secrets they swore they would take to the grave are rattling the cage, demanding to be heard. Composure became their costume long ago, but underneath that fabric, a raw confession breathes against their ribs. They confess to themselves at night when defenses dissolve, whispering truths that daylight would never permit them. What they hold back is not calculated cruelty. It is paralyzing fear that honesty will arrive too late. The first card exposing their hidden truth is the High Priestess, and this reaches into their subconscious. The High Priestess tells me this person knows far more than they reveal. Intuition they deliberately suppress. Deep within their awareness sits a confession they cannot rationalize away, one that bypasses logic and hits bone. This card confirms they sensed the magnitude of this connection before their mind caught up to it. The High Priestess reveals they knew you were irreplaceable from the beginning, and that knowing terrified them. Their hidden admission is that they recognized your worth long before the crisis forced them to confront it. Pretending otherwise was survival, because acknowledging your importance meant admitting their treatment of you was unforgivable. The High Priestess confirms they carry a spiritual awareness about this bond, something beyond ordinary attachment. Their subconscious registered you as sacred, and that registration haunts every waking moment they spend without you. They confess internally that no distraction numbs what they feel, not other people or work or distance. Every substitute they reached for dissolved on contact, confirming what the High Priestess already knew. Nothing replaces you. Their unspoken truth is that they compared everyone to you silently, and every comparison ended the same way. Nobody measured up because nobody was built to occupy the space you carved, and they hate admitting that. The next card stepping forward is the Seven of Swords, and this reveals deception they practiced on themselves. The Seven of Swords tells me their greatest lie was never directed outward, it was directed inward. They convinced themselves they could walk away clean, that detachment was strength and distance meant healing. This card confirms they fabricated an entire narrative of indifference, selling it to themselves harder than anyone else. The Seven of Swords reveals every cold gesture was a calculated theft, stealing time from their own happiness. Their hidden confession here is shame, not for losing you, but for the dishonesty that preceded the loss. They lied about not caring when their chest burned, and maintaining that lie cost more than leaving did. The Seven of Swords confirms they wore masks so convincing that they forgot their own face underneath. Peeling those masks back now exposes raw skin, and the vulnerability beneath it is something they barely recognize. Their confession is that manipulation was learned in childhood, weaponized unconsciously against the safest person near them. They targeted tenderness because it mirrored a softness they were taught to distrust, and that pattern sickens them. The Seven of Swords reveals they confess to mirrors and empty rooms, practicing accountability where nobody can witness. Rehearsed apologies pile up inside their throat, each one more honest than the last, and none yet delivered. Now the final card arriving is the Ace of Wands, and this holds a confession about rekindled desire. The Ace of Wands tells me a fire reignited inside them, one they desperately tried to extinguish. Desire they pronounced dead came roaring back without permission, and its return dismantled every wall they rebuilt. This card confirms their hidden confession is hunger, a raw and undeniable craving to begin again from nothing. The Ace of Wands reveals fantasies about a fresh start, where past damage gets acknowledged, not erased. Their secret is that the spark never actually died. It merely went dormant while pride stood guard. Ignition happened the moment they stopped lying to themselves, and now that flame refuses to be contained again. All right, now we are looking ahead at what the near future holds, and the cards bring powerful resolution. What unfolds from here is not uncertainty. It is a collision between regret and redemption in real time. The first card for the near future is Judgment, and this marks the moment of complete reckoning. Judgment tells me a definitive turning point arrives soon, where both sides face the full truth unfiltered. Avoidance expires permanently with this card, and what replaces it is raw and unscripted confrontation with reality. This card confirms that a conversation is approaching, one that strips away pretense and lays everything bare. Judgment reveals both sides will be called to answer honestly, no masks and no rehearsed performances allowed. Accountability becomes mutual under this card, and the weight of the past finally gets addressed openly. Judgment confirms transformation follows this reckoning. Old versions of the connection dissolve to make room for truth. The next card arriving is the World, and this brings completion and the closing of a painful chapter. The World tells me a full cycle reaches its end, the lessons extracted and the growth undeniable. What felt like destruction in earlier parts of this reading now reveals itself as necessary evolution. This card confirms that resolution is not distant. It stands within reach if both sides remain willing. The World reveals nothing was random in this journey. Every fracture served a purpose, now finally visible. Closure on old pain arrives with this card, and what opens next carries a maturity previously absent. The World confirms both sides earned this moment through suffering, and what emerges will be lasting. Now the final card is the Two of Cups, and this speaks to reconnection built on equal ground. The Two of Cups tells me mutual recognition is coming, two people seeing each other with new eyes. Partnership rooted in balance enters the picture, replacing the uneven dynamic that created the original wound. This card confirms if reconciliation occurs, it will stand on a foundation of shared accountability and respect. The Two of Cups reveals a connection reborn through honesty, where both sides contribute equally and neither dominates. Now here is my advice to you, and I need you to absorb this before moving forward. Do not rush to forgive before the full truth has been spoken, because premature mercy enables repetition. Guard your standards with the same ferocity that carried you through the hardest parts of this experience. If they approach with words, measure those words against sustained actions over time, not over days. Require consistency before offering trust again, because trust rebuilt on impulse crumbles faster than trust broken. Your worth was confirmed in every single card today, so do not negotiate it downward for comfort. Welcome honesty when it arrives, but demand it comes paired with changed behavior, not just changed vocabulary. Protect your peace as fiercely as you protect your love, because both deserve equal reverence moving forward. Stand firm in knowing you deserve effort that matches the depth of what you gave without condition. Now let me bring this entire reading together, because the message from the very first line was clear. They finally realize losing you will be their biggest regret, and every card echoed that truth relentlessly. That was the message opening this reading, and not a single card deviated from its weight or direction. The Five of Cups showed their mourning. The Tower shattered the illusion that kept them comfortable and blind. The King of Swords confirmed mental clarity replacing denial. Strength revealed the quiet power living on your side. The Four of Swords honored your recovery. The Queen of Wands celebrated the fire returning to your spirit. The Devil exposed chains they built themselves. The Nine of Swords unveiled torment, consuming their sleepless nights. The Six of Cups pulled them into painful nostalgia. The Ten of Wands confirmed the burden being carried. The Magician brought resourcefulness into pursuit. The Knight of Pentacles promised steady and reliable effort forward. The High Priestess revealed intuition they suppressed. The Seven of Swords exposed lies directed at themselves. The Ace of Wands confirmed desire that refused to die. Judgment announced the reckoning arriving for both sides. Judgment reveals both sides will be called to answer honestly. No masks and no rehearsed performances allowed. Accountability becomes mutual under this card, and the weight of the past finally gets addressed openly. Judgment confirms transformation follows this reckoning. Old versions of the connection dissolve to make room for truth. The next card arriving is the World, and this brings completion and the closing of a painful chapter. The World tells me a full cycle reaches its end, the lessons extracted and the growth undeniable. What felt like destruction in earlier parts of this reading now reveals itself as necessary evolution. This card confirms that resolution is not distant. It stands within reach if both sides remain willing. The World reveals nothing was random in this journey. Every fracture served a purpose, now finally visible.